So I probably should have started this earlier. But, so I've made an assessment about the horizontal nature of my paper. I've also made it an assessment about the general orientation of that leaf that I'm going to draw. And so I decided to go horizontally. And then the next thing I'm going to do is going to think about it, how it's going to fit on my page, given the parameters of my page. And in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go like this. Right? What I didn't do was this. Okay? What I did was I made the most broadest general gesture. Okay? You've heard the word before, gesture. And that just means this is a mass of this is where the thing is going to be, the massing of it. And I call that the gesture. It's the initial thought. It's this basic mass that's kind of going in this direction in this area. I've made a judgment about this is the extremity of it on this side, this is the extremity on that side. I will then take this and start breaking it down. So I'm very lightly, notice that I'm barely even notice how I'm holding the pencil, notice how lightly I'm making the lines, right? And all I'm doing is feeling my way to where the different forms are. I haven't made any determinations yet. I've only made a guess, right? Guess and gesture are pretty much the same word. It's just, this is the initial thoughts that are likely wrong. In fact, we assume that they're very wrong. We assume that they're very wrong, and I'm making it light so that I can make the critical judgments. Okay, so now I've done that, and then what I'm going to do is use a couple measuring techniques. Who has used measuring techniques when they're drawing? What's a measuring technique? Anybody? Okay.
Don't they use their pencil to?
Right, yeah. Anybody do that before? In a drawing class?
Light drawing, yeah.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure the width to the height of my object. Which means I'm going to take my pencil, I'm going to put it out in my field of vision, and I'm going to lock my elbow, and I'm going to make my pencil perpendicular to my eye. There's that word again. I'm going to, just like my page is perpendicular, my pencil is going to be perpendicular, and I'm going to put the tip of my pencil onto one side. And I'm actually going to measure from the stem out, and then I'm going to measure the height. So I'm going to measure this is the beginning of the leafy part to here, and I'm going to compare that to the height here, okay? I'm going to measure here the width and to the height. And I'm going to do that by going out. I'm going to put the pencil tip here and my thumb over here, okay? So there it is in my visual field. And then what I'm going to do is immediately turn it over, and I'm going to compare that to the height. And I'm just going to look and compare it, and it's about 1 to half. So this is 1, and then the height is half. So all I have to do is bisect it. And it's not a precise measure. It's a visual framework. It is not, a very precise thing, but it gives you into the ballpark, right? So that's about half, so I'm going to measure about half, and then I can go, there's the height. So here's the bottom, there's the top. So all these lines that I've made, so it has to be in here somewhere, right? So what did I do? I made a very much a guess about where I'm going. So you guess first and then measure. You guess, and now you're measuring. So if that's the height, this is the bottom. All my leaves are in here. Now this is, it's getting more and more complex. This is a very complex thing. But at least I know where my boundaries are.
Professor, can I ask a question?
Yes, of course.
So you say you don't
No,
want it,
wait a minute, not that one. Go ahead.
you say you don't want it to be perfect, correct?
No, that's not what I said. Eventually, but I know that I can't be perfect,
Okay.
but I know that I'm wrong at first. I'm not
Oh.
trying to be wrong. I'm acknowledging my imperfection.
Okay.
I know you guys think I'm perfect, but I know I'm not perfect. And so what I'm saying is that there's a technique to go through knowing that you're not perfect by putting something out there that you assume is going to be wrong, but it needs to be out there in order to fix it. So you have to put it out there and then you fix it. And that's the simple technique. All these things are a process by which you make a hypothesis and then you test it, assuming that it's wrong. So here I'm just putting in some more information. I'm still keeping it very light because I'm assuming that I will have to fix those lines, but I'm far enough along where I can put a little bit more information in, right? And what I mean by information is a more particular line and not just a sweeping line. And
Are you kind of like tracing around the edges?
right now I'm looking at this spine through the center
Yeah.
as well as the edges on the outside.
And you're like trying to go for more like a pure relief and not, like it to be like a photographic representation of it.
What I'm trying to do right now is be critical of what I'm looking at. So the way to do that is you look out there, you record what you think you saw, and then you test that against measuring and against how it fits into the overall structure. So over here there's a bunch of little guys that are coming out like this, going out like that, over here. Now, even if you're a computer person, drawing is going to be very helpful to you. So, I know I'm talking to a lot of computer people here, but the idea of drawing and using the process of drawing, because remember, drawing is not about making a pretty picture. Drawing is about being critical of the world around you and drawing in that information. So right now I'm choking up a little bit. I'm putting some more information in there, and I'm again enough to make a judgment against, right? So I put that in. How is it going to fit into there, right? How is it working with everything else in my drawing? Now, this is the critical part that I was going to, you can see where I'm going with this. And I could spend a lot more time, especially if you weren't looking over my shoulder, and just enjoying the idea of putting down a line that represents my vision. And I could go through and try to get all of that. But just so that you understand where I'm going with this, is that I want to show you how to use line now to represent a three-dimensional form. The first thing I'm going to do...
Can
Go
I just
ahead.
say something?
Yep.
Also, we have to be in mind that we're all in different angles. So what you're seeing is completely different from what I'm seeing.
Okay.
So it looks different
Yeah.
from what you're drawing. Just to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
'cause-
Well, from my angle, it's perfect. But from your angle,
Yeah,
no.
I'm just
Actually,
saying-
there's a lot of mistakes that I'm still seeing, but what I want to do is I want to move a little bit further along so you see how this works. So what I want to show you is two techniques for using line to represent space. The first is all these forms on the front are closer to me. So what I want to do eventually, let's say I'm confident in these lines, which I'm pretty confident. They're not great. What I'm going to do is make those darker and sharper. Right up here. Right? They're all closer to me. And then as I go back, they're going to get lighter and softer. Do you ever hear atmospheric perspective? That's what I'm putting into this drawing. It's a very common technique, underutilized in general, but it is a very important drawing technique for sculptors. So for example, all these lines that go up here like this will end up being softer and lighter. And I can actually erase them and soften them up a little bit. But the way to do that is two ways. Just a quick technique. You know, if you choke up on your pencil and go like this, you can make a hard, sharp line. If you hold your pencil like this, you make a soft, lighter line. That line is coming forward to you. This line is receding back. And that's what atmospheric perspective is. So we're essentially putting atmospheric perspective into our drawing. So that's the first technique that I want you to use. Maybe I'll hold off on the second technique for another day. That way, all I want you to do is find a leaf for homework. Find a leaf for homework and draw it with this technique. Lay it out on your page nicely. Okay? Draw it with the forms that are closer to you, especially the edge is a hard, dark line. And as you get further back, it'll soften up, okay? And the lines get softer. The more you can modulate that, the more depth you'll have in your drawing. The more you can control that, okay? And on this, don't worry at all about making this a beautiful, pretty drawing. Well, all I want you to do is start wrestling with this technique. Because what is it? It's a technique in which you are observing that three-dimensional structure and then trying to translate that. So ultimately, it's about learning to see within the three-dimensional world and understand how that's constructed.
Do you want us to get a giant leaf?
I want you to get a big leaf.
Okay.
I picked a really complex leaf. If you pick a simpler leaf, then you won't. This isn't going to take you as long. However, I want this drawing to take for you at least a half an hour. So if you found a simple leaf and you did it and you think you move on, make sure that your drawing should represent at least a half an hour of drawing, okay? And then we'll go on from there, all right?